Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Doug, the retirement guy. And today we're going to talk about the 3-bucket retirement portfolio system. I'm going to explain it deeply by explaining each and every bucket, what it's used for, how does it go into play, and what we do with that financial money. So basically make it simple and easy for you. This came from a lot of different viewers. It wasn't just one. I got numerous ones saying, hey, could you explain the portfolio system deeper, more detailed, give me more insight into it? So I thought it'd be a great time to sit down, take my cup of coffee, sit down and give you guys a full rundown of the 3-bucket system. Well, before I do that, got to do a shout out to all 15,000 of our subscribers. Thank you so much for being part of the channel. We're adding thousands each and every week. We really appreciate everything that you guys are part of with this channel. I really believe this is a family. Also, all of our Patreon supporters, thank you. That's what keeps the channel alive and going strong. Now I want to explain one more thing to you. We have an exciting little piece here. You see my cup, you see my mug. I've got it sitting right next to me right now. My retirement made easy, living on dividends coffee mug. We now are able to offer these to everyone out there. All you need to do is go down to Patreon. We're not trying to get you. You can get into Patreon. You can sign up for the free package even to get this. You can purchase the mug. We'll get them shipped right out to you. It's a fun way to help supporting the channel and keeping you focused on your retirement, making it easy. So don't be afraid to get your coffee mug. We got them available. We got on our second run already. So guys, thank you for all who've bought them before, and hopefully everyone will enjoy the coffee mug. Let's get into today's video, 3-bucket system. Now I do have to do an important disclaimer. The content is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is not financial advice, and the presenter is not a financial advisor. Investing involves risk. Income is not guaranteed, and the past performances do not guarantee future results. Always do your own research and consult a financial advisor for any financial decisions. So, why most retirement portfolios struggle? Well, it starts off with one, too conservative. And yeah, that is a problem. Being too conservative, cash feels safe, so you keep your cash tied up. But inflation silently erodes your buying power year after year. So you have a loss of purchasing power. Now, the number one problem that most people will always say, too aggressive. Staying in growth heavy can force selling shares at a loss just to pay your monthly bills. Or buying that hot new stock that you saw someone talk about on YouTube, and all of a sudden it's creating big yields, but losing your money quietly on the back end. And then tying it all into it, chasing high yields, chasing high yield funds that hide the NAV decline, price drops, and unsustainable income streams. These are all the bits and pieces that I think if we all look through our portfolios, we would find we probably fell into one of these categories sometime in our lives. This is why no single strategy can solve every retirement needs, but structure is what matters. You have to have a hardcore structure to make it work. Now, this is a saying I was taught many years ago, and that is every dollar gets a job. You need to tell your money, before you get it, you need to tell your money where it goes and what it's supposed to do. You've heard me talk about this before. This is why I always look at my money as really as employees. Okay? I look at these guys as employees, and if you were running a company and you have all these employees, you want them to do what you need them to do. Some of them are going to be income generators. Some of them are going to make money for you. Okay? So to pay the bills and pay all that, you want income from this dollar bill. Some of you are going to want growth. You're going to take the couple dollars, put it in the growth fund, and you want it to grow to $3, $4, $5. You want to grow across the board. And then you got some other ones that they were going to be, I call it your safety, your security. It's like your police and your fire department. These are your safety dollars. And they're going in your safe to protect everything that you have. So when you're in safety, it protects the plan. It's your buffer against market storms and unexpected expenses. Your growth fights against inflation, keeps your purchasing power rising over long retirement, and your income generates your paycheck, your steady cash flow over living expenses in retirement. Build a retirement plan with a purpose, not just a dollar amount, not just a value. Have a purpose of what you're doing with each and every dollar before you do it. So the three buckets setup. Now I'm going to use strictly for easy math because this number means absolutely nothing but a $1 million portfolio. This works with $500,000. This works with $300,000. This works with $750,000. It works with any dollar amount you want to put into it. But at $1 million, it's going to be easy to do the math for us. Every dollar has a job. So out of that $1 million total portfolio, 10% of your total goes into bucket number one, which is the foundation bucket. That means $100,000 goes into the bucket for our safety, liquidity, and stability. Okay? 15% goes into the growth bucket, or $150,000. Now, this is to get inflation protection and long-term upside because you still need growth in retirement. Don't let anyone ever kid you about that. You definitely need to have growth in your retirement. And actually, foundation is a combination of almost all three buckets in the one. And the growth bucket can be a growth and income package too, but really designed all heavily for growth. And then bucket number three is income, where 75% of your dollars are working towards that paycheck, those living expenses, all the things that you want to do in retirement. 75% of your bucket goes into that area. Now, these allocations are educational illustrations only. Individual needs, age, risk tolerance, income sources, and expenses will affect the actual allocation decisions. But across the board, I personally use this exact setup of 75, 15, and 10 because it just seems to work for my own personal application. So let's break them down now. This is where we'll get more detailed into this. And this is going to be bucket number one. We call our foundation bucket. The goal for this one is safety, security, stability, and liquidated. Okay? 10% of your portfolio is into this fund. Safety first. It's not designed to beat the market. We're not looking to get, 50% growth. We're not looking for big dividends. We're not looking at anything like that. What we're going to put in here is what you're comfortable with: cash, which a lot of people will talk about that they like to have 6 months to a year of cash on hand. You're going to put money market funds into it. You're going to put your treasury bills, your short-term treasury ETFs, your CDs. I've actually had this where we've put different ETF funds in there, like SCHD, VOO, QQQ. I've had those in my buckets, in that foundation bucket before. What this is all designed to do is prevents forcing selling under bear markets. Okay, you can sleep at night in confidence during volatility. So when you have $100,000 of the $1 million put into this bucket, with all I said, cash, the CDs, the money markets, all that, it's very safe and secure. Now this bucket will grow over time. Okay, we're not looking for huge growth. This is why I say these buckets can have multiple things. If you put a fund in there like SCHD, you're collecting some yield. You're collecting some growth. You want your money to do not just sit idle, you want it to grow. So that's why I suggest you put these into funds that will have some growth, but we don't need double-digit growth. We just always like to say maybe a little bit better than inflation. So money market funds, CDs out there, you can get yourself 3 to 5% easily out there in those type of funds. Now, bucket two, this is where it starts getting really interesting. Bucket two is your growth bucket. This will have 15% of your portfolio put into it. Now, what's unique is when you do it properly, and the purpose of this fund is to fight inflation and grow. So what you want to do is make sure you have enough money in the bucket to cover your entire portfolio, okay, of inflation. So inflation rate right now, I believe they're coming in about 3%. Okay, so 3% of $1 million is what you want to make sure you're covering from this bucket. Now, it fights the rising costs of groceries, healthcare, insurance, property taxes. It targets capital appreciation, not monthly income. Okay, so we're not looking for income from this. Though some funds will pay dividends, some funds will pay us money, we're not really looking for that. What we're looking at, a total package, is your growth potential. Possible assets is that broad market ETFs, dividend growth ETFs, technology growth ETFs. It's designed for retirees who need income first, and 15% reflects that priority. Retirement doesn't mean stop raising money. This bucket fights for all that. You see the funds I put on here: SPY, the S&P 500, VOO, another SP 500, QQQ, the NASDAQ 100, VGT. That's a heavy technology thing. Because right now, today, they look at saying easily in the next 5 years, technology will still be the largest growing sector across the board. Now, when you start putting these numbers together, and I'll tell you some just rough tap, VGT is easily a 20-year-old fund. Okay, it's been out there, I think 2000, and don't hold me to this one, but I want to say 2004 is when they first introduced that fund. So we're 22 years old. Now you could look at the 1 year mark and say, well, this thing went up 42%. What I always like to look at with all these funds, I like to put things in my growth bucket that have a 5, 10, 20, 30-year long-term play, so I can see. If you take VGT, for example, and you come up with that and say, if it's been out there 22 years, what has happened in the past 22 years? Well, we've had select wars, we've had bull markets, we've had bear markets, we've had crashes, we've had a lot of different things. And over those periods, that thing has had over a 15% total return number for almost 22 years. So that tells me that I can almost count on each year to have about a 15% growth. Some years are going to be better. Some years are going to be lighter. But on average, about a 15% package. QQQ, VOO, very similar type platforms. VOO is about 14.9, I think it was 14.97% last time I looked at it. So what I'm looking at here, even though we have funds in this bucket that are growing at 15 to 16% percentage points, remember, that's going to make up that 3 or 5% across the board on your portfolio. Okay, that's why these funds, long term, you got to look out, way out. Don't come to me and say, oh my God, I got this fund, makes 30% growth. How long does it do it? Well, it's only been out a year. I want long-term, hardcore pieces to it. Now, you can also take some of these and you could potentially put these into your foundation fund if you need to. But this is where I would put, and this is what I put in my growth funds, is heavily funds like this. Now, one that did get left off, again, SCHD. SCHD could be in the growth bucket. It had an 18% growth last year alone. And that one there, again, with distributions, and distributions have grown over time, that one can generate income, but you just roll it right back into your bucket for additional growth. This is where you're looking at funds that have been out there for long periods of time, double-digit returns to help grow across the board. That's what I use my growth bucket for. Now, the bucket that everyone always is excited about, and it's probably the easiest bucket to work on, and it's the fun bucket to work on, is bucket number 3. And this is your income bucket. Okay, this is our gold standard. 75% of your total retirement portfolio goes into this bucket. These guys have to work their tails off. That means $750,000 of your $1 million portfolio is in this bucket. Your retirement paycheck generating that steady income from dividends, equity income strategies, option income options, the dividend ETFs and the equity income funds, covered calls. Some people will put bond income funds into this. The focus is total return, never just yield. You want total return. You want positive total returns. You want NAV stability. You want distribution consistency, not just high yields. Okay? This is why the weekly funds, all these fancy new funds out there, not interested. They don't go in my portfolio. They don't fit. Because I want to be able to sleep at night, and I want this bucket to just continuously pay out, pay out, pay out. Now, this fund, depending on where you're putting it into, a Roth fund, IRA, or if you're doing a brokerage fund, you got to pick the right funds for it. So if you can get a fund total working out conservative around 8% income, you're going to be generating $60,000 a year from that $750,000. 10%, $75,000, 12%, $90,000. So the question comes into is, what do you need for income? How do you want to live? And what do you actually need for your cost of living? When you sit down and look at it, that the average homeowner costs them about $56,000 a year to live. Think about that. $56,000 a year to live. So at $750,000, if you get 8%, you're going to live comfortably. You're going to live like you are today. You want to do a little more traveling, you want to do a little more adventures while in retirement, get the thing up to 10%. It's not hard to do. And depending on your bucket and where you're putting it, if you're in a brokerage fund, you want to look at your tax side of things. You want to look at the funds that are going to give you your 1256 contracts, like NEOS, SPYI, QQQI. You want to look at those funds because they're very, very positive on tax side of things. You want to look at things that maybe you have the ROC, that use it properly, return of capital. So you don't want to worry about taxes down the road. But this is the fund that you're going to put into things that are going to generate. As I said, your covered call options work very well in here. High dividend ETFs, income funds. You're going to put those in there. You're going to keep it probably within about 4 to 5 different funds put in there. Keep it simple. Okay? I go out right off the bat. I can name some off. We didn't list them here, but like I said, QQQI and SPYI. You go to the Goldman Sachs side of things. You go to the TAP Alphas. But all you're doing is you're continuously buying the funds that work around the S&P 500, the Russell 2000, the NASDAQ 100. Those give you the safest buy, the package together to put into an income bucket package. So here's the other one, how the buckets really work together. Okay, as the total system. Bucket one, again, provides that stability and that breathing room for your safety net when the markets get ugly. The growth bucket fights for inflation and builds long-term purchasing power and keeping your retirement relevant. And your income delivers that retirement check and that regular cash flow that you need each and every month to pay your bills. Now, this is the part that a lot of people kind of miss. And this is what I call the rebalancing system, the core rule. The target allocations that I said earlier that I use is this 10% in the foundation, 15% in growth, 75% in income. When a bucket overflows, you trim the excess from the overperforming bucket and redirect the gains to fill any bucket that has fallen below its target. When a bucket falls short, redirect income surplus or harvested gains to restore the underlying weight of the bucket. So you can always stay back. Now, some people say, when do I do this? Rebalancing can be 6 months, 12 months. There's no set period that you have to do it. I always suggest, though, minimum, you look at it once a year. And I use buckets, and why it made it so easy for me to understand buckets is when a bucket gets full, it overflows. And you always start with the foundation bucket at the highest point, growth in the middle, and income at the end. So everything rolls downhill to income. But what happens is in your foundation, as we said, we're using $1 million, so all of a sudden it's $100,000. Let's say foundation had a great year. It did wonders, and you got $125,000 into it. You take that rebalance, that $25,000 off, you take those funds and you roll them into the growth fund. Well, what happens when you're sitting there with your growth fund at $200,000? Awesome. You take that $200,000, take it back down to $150,000, scrape that off, put it into your income. You balance everything back out. And even a fund that may be already at a certain dollar amount, you may have to raise it up. A foundation done good, no big issues, but it's at 9.98%. You got to raise that back up to a 10. The goal is to get these all backed right to 75, with the majority of it going back into income. So you're always running equal across the board. Now the reverse happens. When a bucket falls short, you do have to refill the bucket. Something's wrong. Do you have an underperforming stock? Do you have an underperforming ETF? What went wrong? You evaluate, you make the changes, and you move forward. The goal of this is that each one of these funds do an overflow that just keep rolling the money into the income, and your income continuously goes up. So rebalancing is driven by targets, not emotions. Okay, that's a big one. Oh my God, the market's crashing. Got to sell, sell, sell. No, let it go. It's emotions. You have these in particular forms religiously. Now let's talk about market downturn behavior. How the three bucket system protects you when the markets fall. Well, here's the biggest thing across the board. You have the money put into certain buckets and you've told the money what to do. Money doesn't always know, what's going on in the world. It doesn't watch the news. The foundation fund provides that cash flexibility. No need to sell during dips. The growth, stay invested. Avoid locking in losses by holding through the declines. Okay? Don't sell because the stocks went down, you don't sell. You hold tight. Now, this comes from one of my most favorite movies. It's a Wonderful Life. When they have the big bank crisis in that movie, and George is sitting there and saying, what is going on? Everybody is selling. Everyone's selling off. They're getting out of all the money. They're getting rid of everything. And Potter, the old wise guy, is buying. And I always love that saying. Potter's buying, we're selling. That's because he's looking at the long-term picture. Oh, it's bad today. But if I buy low today, I'm going to be a lot better when it recovers. And that's what you're at. Be a potter. When things are down, take your extra cash, take your extra funds, and buy. Buy on those low dips. Because the income will continue to produce distributions. As the cash flow keeps flowing and you're able to live off of it, your other two funds are covering you. A strong foundation means you never have to sell growth assets at the worst possible time. That's why we always build a little bit more funds of income to what you actually need. We build a little bit more of a foundation than you actually need, and we let the growth do what it does. Now, I know distributions are not guaranteed and they may vary. That's why you always build above what you're actually asking for. Now, in a strong market behavior, this is simple. Discipline wins when the markets rise. The heaviest gains, the rebalancing, stay on target. Okay? The growth bucket will probably exceed its 15% in strong markets like we're looking at today. After strong market year, your growth bucket climbs above its target allocation. It's a signal to act, not to celebrate. That's a trigger point. Never bring emotions into the money game. Trim the excess. Sell a portion of your growth of that bucket and, be disciplined about it. Lock in your profits before the market reverses. Refill that foundation bucket. Always make sure your foundation bucket is full first, then your income. Okay? Always, that's your security blanket. That's your security. Remember that. Always pay the police and the fire department. Keep them well happy. Then you take care of your income side of it. The system buys low and sells high automatically. The system doesn't chase the rallies, it harvests from those rallies. The simple rebalancing explained for you. I'll show you here. At the end of the year, your foundation fund is down to $80,000. It's below your target. The growth fund is up $180,000. That's $30,000 above its target. And your income is basically even about $760,000 total. So your total portfolio value is now worth $1,020,000. So when you go to rebalance it, you're going to trim off some of your growth and you're going to refill your foundation back up to 10%. Because your portfolio is now at $1,020,000, you need to have $102,000 in your foundation. You need $153,000 in your growth fund, and you need $765,000 in your income fund. You see how the percentages never changed, but your portfolio value did, so your funds, your buckets changed. They get a little bit bigger so that they can hold more cash. Okay, that remaining, if you did the math right, the remaining $5,000 difference, you can put that in income, you can put it for taxes, you can actually go out and have fun and spend it if you really wanted to. Okay, you don't have to keep it all in there. You get to do what you want with your money after you've trimmed it, but you got to make sure your buckets are full to the maximum amounts before you do anything. So growth was trimmed by $27,000 to refill the foundation and stabilize the system. That's a basic, simple way of rebalancing your funds. Okay, so you're adjusting where it needs to go. And it's very simple, easy to do. So why does the system help retirees? Every question gets answered with a clear answer. Where's my safety money? It's in your foundation bucket in cash or T-bills or stabilities. It's stable. How do I beat inflation? Because your growth bucket. You're getting the extra growth of those funds, 15% long-term capital growth. And if you do the math over and over again, you'll find out that the 15% becomes the magic number to cover, no matter what size portfolio, will always cover it to get above inflation if invested properly. Where's my paycheck coming from? Where's my money coming? It's your income bucket. You know what your income's going to be. You have it pre-planned. It comes every month, dialed in. When bucket overflows, what do? Well, you rebalance it. You trim off the full, refill the low, make it simple. Keep it rolling forward. Even if your portfolio gets bigger, I already showed you, you get your bigger buckets. You open up your buckets a little bit. If we're in a downward trend, okay, we restructure. Does our income have to be as high as it is? Maybe we have to shrink it down a little bit. Structure replaces guesswork. Discipline replaces emotions. That's what this whole thing's all about. Now, let me give you one common mistake that this happens to me all the time when I talk to people. The very first fund that they ignore is the foundation bucket. This is a huge mistake. Most people want every dollar working for income. They want to retire quickly. They want to get out of the rat race. They want all their money working for them for income. Leaving cash buffer with zero. The portfolio has no cash buffer at all. It forces you to sell growth assets during market drops. There's no cushion when distributions are cut or delayed. Emotional panic drives the poor decision. Why the foundation matters? Even a 10% cash buffer, just $100,000 of $1 million portfolio, can change everything. It eliminates forced selling in bear markets. It covers unexpected expenses without distribution. It builds that sleep at night confidence. Borrowing money may be what saves your retirement plan. That's what this is all about. You know, we have I always do this one. Do we have police officers? Do we want them? No. What I want is when I need them, I want them there. But I don't want them every day. Okay? I don't want them being there, but when I need them, they're there. Now, the common mistakes too is forgetting about growth. So many people keep going the number three bucket in income, that they forget about growth. I don't need growth anymore. I'm retired. I don't need, my portfolio is big. I don't need more. Going all income means inflation quietly wins. Inflation is a real and relentless, with groceries, healthcare, insurance, and property taxes rise every single year. Income alone can't keep up with the portfolio. It doesn't grow. Your dollar buys less and less every time. The growth bucket is your inflationary shield. That 15% dedicated to long-term capital appreciation keeps your purchase power alive. Now, every fund, we're hoping to have some growth, but some of those income funds, we won't have growth. We just got yields. And this is a big example of what I show, that purchasing power over time. If you continue to grow with the income, you're going to have a win-win situation on your hands. And then our final three mistake that I find everyone really does is that chases the yield. Yield is not the same as a good return or a good retirement fund investment. Don't take the bait. So many people looked at the weeklies, the weekly paying ETFs. They did so much. Oh my God, I'm making 30%, 40%. I just talked to a gentleman today before I started making this video, and his whole thing was all about the same thing. He wanted to put his money into a 45% ETF. The yield is 45%. I said, what's your total return? It's a yield is 45%. I said, what's your total return? I looked it up for him. His total return was 7%. I said, the fund's losing money. Oh, I'm making 45. You're losing money. Don't chase the yield. Pull back, get a 10% with a 20% total return. You're winning. Before buying any income fund, ask yourself, how does the fund actually generate income? Is the NAV holding steady over time or slowly declining? What does the total return look like, not just yield? Has the distribution been consistent or frequent cuts? Is the tax treatment favorable for your retirement solution? I never buy the highest yield package out there. I don't ever buy the highest total return package either. I find what fits my portfolio, which is a quality yield and a quality growth and a quality total return. Chasing yield will lose every single time. So the final thoughts and the recap of all this, hopefully guys, this gives you what you're looking for, a deeper dive into this. Again, bucket one, the foundation, 10%. That's that safety bucket. The growth bucket, number two at 15%, and the income at 75%. Overfilled buckets get trimmed the access and refill the weaker buckets. And the buckets do get bigger and bigger over time. The discipline is over emotions. When a bucket fills up, rebalance it. Let the targets guide the decision, not the market noise. Protection, growth, income, discipline, everything works together in one complete package. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the presentation? What do you think of the three bucket system? Now, I know everyone has their own different ways of operating it, but this will help everyone in their retirement package. If you like what we're doing, hit that like button. I really appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time.